Syria and the international community have traded accusations over chemical weapons for months. In July of last year, the regime acknowledged it has chemical weapons and threatened to use them against any Western military intervention, but never against its own people. Then in August, U.S. President Barack Obama said the use of chemical weapons by Damascus would cross what he called a red line. In March, the Syrian government and rebel forces accused each other of using chemical weapons for the first time. In April, the White House then said that Syria has likely used chemical weapons against rebel forces on a small scale. Then earlier this month, a UN investigator said that they have reasonable grounds to believe both sides have used chemical weapons on at least 4 occasions. A senior figure in the Free Syrian Army has told CNN's Christiane Amanpour that he welcomes any additional support from the U.S. But General Salim Idris says that the FSA desperately needs military equipment.
What we need really is weapons and ammunition, and especially anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles. And we hope that our friends in the United States will not leave us alone facing the fighters of Hezbollah, the Iranian fighters, and the Iraqi fighters, and the air jet of the regime who are now trying to recapture Aleppo.
CNN's military analyst, retired Major General James Spider-Marks, joins me now from Washington. Hi, General. Great to see you. Are we likely to see this wish list from the Free Syrian Army actually supplied to the rebels?
Probably not in its totality. Clearly what they need includes weapon systems that they probably won't get, unfortunately, and those are anti-tank weapon systems, shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile systems that would allow the opposition forces to achieve a degree of security and a freedom of movement that they currently don't have. What I think they are going to get is small arms. What you'd see would be normal pistols, rifles, and ammunition sufficient to at least get those weapon systems into the fight. But clearly, there is a lot that they need that they will not get from the United States, and certainly sponsored by other nations.
Let's look at some of the kind of ammunition they may get from the United States. Let's take a look. They'll get regular ammunition, things like automatic rifles, maybe rockets and mortars, or shoulder-fired weapons. These are some of the things, General, that are being discussed. Do you think that those kind of items could be bound for the rebels who really want some, if not all of them?
Well, they do, and I think all of that is certainly achievable. There are some weapon systems like anti-tank weapon systems, those shoulder-fired systems may or may not be included in that list. But the problem that you have is that the weapon system by itself, without some degree of associated training, often achieves zero military effect on the ground. Politically, what you're going to see is with the United States now opening and cracking open that door of providing direct assistance, even if it's through a proxy, the United States is now focused on trying to make a difference on the ground. Assad has to pay attention to that. And I think that's the real desired outcome.
You know better than most people, when you look at the military strategy, the landscape here on the ground politically, it's so fragile and it's so divided, General. I just want to show our viewers around the world this map here, because you can see some of these countries in yellow that support the opposition, notably countries like Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. There you've got Jordan. And then if you just take a look at those countries in orange, you're looking at Iran and Iraq, particularly, that support the Assad regime. Lebanon there has tried to be relatively neutral, but members of Hezbollah have said that they openly support Assad. General, the question for you is, when you have Senator John McCain, for example, suggesting a no-fly zone, and you look at the situation there geographically on the ground, what do you think? Is it a good idea or no?
I think a no-fly zone is a very well-informed recommendation and would make sense immediately. And no-fly zones really are limited in their nature. It's not like throwing a blanket over the entire state of Israel and refusing movement on anyone's part. What you need to do primarily is take the initiative and establish a no-fly zone over where the opposition primarily exists, so that you can, again, provide them a level of security that they currently don't have. But a no-fly zone that doesn't have the ability to enforce the charter of the no-fly zone. In other words, if you get an aircraft up in the air and you are trying to enforce a no-fly zone, you have to have the authority to shoot, to take on targets if they go to challenge the no-fly zone institution. So if you have aircraft in the air, but they don't have the ability to shoot, what you have is a paper tiger that provides no support at all. It clearly is a chimera that's not going to do anyone any good.
And General, if you're going to arm the rebels with any kind of ammunition, is it going to make a real difference, you think, with the situation on the ground? Or is giving the rebels and the opposition that aren't particularly organized weapons make things worse?
Zane, I don't know that it will make it worse, but to your first point, I can tell you that it won't necessarily have a military significant outcome on the ground. At this point, it's too far along. And also the use of weapons and providing weapons to the opposition forces, again, without some form of training, either by the United States or by a proxy, and most likely by a proxy that would be someone in Jordan or someone in Turkey that has freedom of movement into Syria and can at least link up with the opposition forces. If you don't have that training, then you really don't have a capability that you can see in full blossom to take on the Syrian regime.
Major General Spider Marks in Washington, thanks so much. Great to see you as always.